Welcome to the Full Minded with Alyssa Bette podcast, where my mission is to normalize the human experience. I believe there's power in authenticity and building a community immersed in it. I plan on bringing you on an in-depth and transparent journey of my life through solo episodes. I will also be interviewing a range of individuals who are willing to share their unique stories. On this podcast, we will dive into topics such as mental health, heartbreak, loss, change, trauma, self-love, and every other topic that makes up the human experience. While I do my very best to provide you insight and knowledge on these subject matters, this podcast is not a substitute for professional help. I am not a licensed therapist. I am simply a human sharing my experiences with the intent to help people feel less alone. If you are suffering, please consult with a licensed professional. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode. I've just had 2 coffees, which is usually not wise for me because anxiety, but I just felt really tired this morning and I said, fuck it. So I'm wired. So this energy is going to come at you with a lot of energy. I almost feel like I should be pacing and standing, but I'm actually sitting in my bed in Bali. I'm still in Bali. I'm still in fucking Bali and I'm having the time of my life. And I don't have a date that I'm returning yet, which is unbelievable and such a blessing. And yeah, I'm just living life, guys. I'm living life. It's so interesting because when I booked this trip, I feel like I had envisioned what it would look like. And as you know, if you've been following along on my journey, it looked nothing like it. The first month was treacherous. It was so many challenges back to back to back. It felt like an episode of Survivor. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm meant to find peace and healing and calmness and stillness for my soul. And I'm like fucking getting Bali belly and losing the toenail and fucking almost drowning. And there's just been so many things that have happened. And I'm like, what is going on? But as you know as well, if you've been following along, I had this perspective shift of like, maybe that's what I needed to do. Maybe that's what I needed to endure. And maybe that's what I needed to shed in order to feel all the things that I feel now. Because as soon as that perspective shift hit me, I feel like I was a new woman. I was like, okay, no, this is part of the plan. You know, oftentimes we want these characteristics and these qualities that come with struggling, but we don't want to go through the struggle to achieve them. So it's interesting because I was like, I just had a completely different image in my mind of how this trip was going to shape up to be. And I'm so happy with where it's at now. And I think it is a powerful perspective shift. And I do believe your mind is a magnet. And when you fear that there's going to be issues, I think you're going to have issues. But then when you are like, even if there is issues, I'm going to overcome them. It's not going to keep me down. I feel like it's such a game changer, right? Also, I wonder if you guys notice a difference in quality because I'm using my miniature mic still and the edits just aren't as good because I'm not on my editing platform. But I kind of like it because it's just more raw and real too. Like it is what it is. It is how I sound. You get all the little pauses and everything in there too. So kind of like it. It's more authentic. But give me some feedback. Can you guys tell the difference between my mini mic, my travel mic, and then I also have a soundproof room at home and I'm just kind of in wherever I'm at in hotels and random homestays and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if you guys can tell a difference. That's just my ADHD. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about what it is like to solo travel while being sober. I want to talk more on sobriety because I feel like on social media, I talk a lot of mental health, self-love, motivation, but I really want to tap into more chats about sobriety and what it's like day to day, sharing my story, over and over again to people that are new here on this platform and just being really authentic with how life feels now. So I'm really trying to gear more towards being transparent about sobriety and what that looks like for me. And a big piece of it, I feel like I've experienced a lot on this solo trip, and being a solo traveler in a society that fucking deems alcohol necessary to have fun is such a mind fuck. It's actually wild. And when you travel and you meet all these different people from these different countries and cultures, and to hear that, you know, alcohol is so heavily pushed in their cultures too. Like, we're not alone in North America. Like, it's really bad in North America, but it's super bad everywhere. Like, poison is just normalized. It's pushed. It's advocated for. You're weird if you don't drink. You're weird if you don't do drugs. It's such a strange concept to me, and never something I was aware of when I was an alcoholic, because I was just like in my own world, in my own head, and trying to convince everyone to drink because I was drinking. But when you're sober and you look at it through a clear lens and you just see the effects of it, and you look back on your own life and think, wow, the things I used to do, the anxiety, what did I say to that person? Did I overshare too much? What did I hook up with someone? Like, it's the worst feeling ever. And I drank for a decade. I was a raging alcoholic. I was doing drugs as well. It kind of goes hand in hand, I feel. And I just completely blurred the lines of who I was. I feel like I didn't even know who I was. I honestly think in the last 2-3 years that I have gotten sober, I have actually learned about myself. I knew very little about who I was as a human before that, because everything was numbed. Everything was numbed, or it was heightened from drugs. And it wasn't a true picture of who I was. And I wasn't able to even listen to my body and how it was feeling. For example, like, I didn't even know, oh man, I didn't even know when I felt overstimulated, because I couldn't identify it and I didn't know what it was. I was just like, oh, I need another line, or I need another shot. I need to feel something. Like, I couldn't identify that my body was rejecting someone's energy because I was always drunk. I couldn't identify that I needed time alone, space alone, rest, sleep, water, food, exercise. I couldn't identify my basic human needs. My basic human needs. That actually breaks my heart to say out loud, but makes me feel an immense amount of gratitude that I'm sober and where I'm at today. I had not the first idea about how I was wired. Even like being in therapy for as many years as I was in therapy, I didn't take the benefits from therapy that somebody else would have had they been sober and actually able to understand and dissect their brain. Like, I showed up because it felt like a good thing to do. And it was beneficial in some ways. But when you're wasted and your vibration is lowered, like at an all-time low because of drugs and alcohol, because even if I'm not drunk, I'm still coming off of the alcohol from before. I think it's like 2 weeks that they say it's in your system for. So even if you have a glass of wine, even if you have, you drink only once in a while, like, it still affects you for so many days afterwards. Obviously, the first couple days are the most intense. The first one, is usually people's hangover and the worst. But for me, it was such a consistent thing that I always had, alcohol flowing through my blood and drugs too. So I was never in a clear, cohesive state. So all these things that I did, and even the relationships I embarked on, this is wild. I don't know if I've shared this with you guys before yet, but I didn't go on a single sober date until last year at 31. I'm 32 now, but last year I was 31. My first time hooking up with someone sober was last year as well. Unreal. And I think, to people that are maybe sober, that probably, sounds a bit shocking, but to people who have gone through alcoholism and addiction, I feel like you can probably relate to that a bit more than you want to. It just wasn't something I did. I didn't date sober. I was always nervous. I didn't think I could. I feel like after using alcohol to suppress your emotions and your fears for so long, it's a crutch. You become dependent on it and you don't believe you can do it without it. So for me, I never, until I challenged, my alcoholism and got sober, I never felt like I could do anything sober. So it's interesting to now I'm over 2 years sober from alcohol and 5 years drugs. And it's interesting to be doing all these things while being aware. Do you want to know something even crazier? I have not picked out a romantic partner sober. I have never gotten into a relationship while sober. I just like need a moment of silence for that, because that is like absolutely unhinged. It is only now, and I'm not ready to date, and I'm not dating, for those interested and curious. I'm not. I'm loving being single, and I'm loving being free. Loving it, because I feel like for the first time in my life, I've woken up and I understand my potential and I know who I am, and I feel like I'm just in my teen years. I spent so much of it in survival and in addiction. I feel like I'm now free, and I'm now like, I just want to do me. But I've never assessed the qualities of another human being before dating them sober. The next time I get into a relationship will be the first time, which is wild. It is so wild to me. And I'm grateful. I know better late than never, right? But it still blows my fucking mind. And it wasn't until my last Asia trip, it was last year, that I did a big trip. That was my first big trip sober. I had not done a big trip sober before until that one, especially solo. It's a different vibe, right? But I embarked on my Asia trip last year, and I did it sober, and I did it solo. And to be honest, the first 2 weeks of it, I really struggled. It felt like I need to drink. Not because I wanted to escape anything per se, but because I was so conditioned to believe that vacations revolve around alcohol. They revolve. I'm in a tropical place. I need a tropical drink. So it was just a matter of unconditioning my brain to believe that. And I sat with it. And at one point I made a pro and con list in my head. And I think it took me 3 minutes to decipher what I was going to do. I was like, okay, it could be fun. It could be amazing. And then I went through the list of all the bad things. You could do things, say things that you don't want to. You're going to break your streak of sobriety. You're going to dysregulate your emotions. You're going to not be able to identify people's clear intentions because you can't see clearly. You're going to think of yourself in more negative ways. You're going to have anxiety. Your depression could come back. Your anxiety could skyrocket. There's the list of a mile long of reasons why I should not drink again and why I will never drink again. And after deciding that, 2 weeks into my 7-week solo trip last year, I did not ever consider it again. And I've not since that day, because it was in that moment that the authentic version of me was set free, was born, was fucking woken up, because I was then forced to mingle with people, connect with people, go on dates, see people. Do you know what I mean? Just have fun, make friends. I started going to clubs. I remember my first club experience sober. I was terrified. Because you have that spotlight effect, right? Nobody in the bar knows you're sober, but you know you're sober, and everyone's on a different frequency than you. So when you walk in there, you feel like everyone knows, or as everyone is staring at you. And that's not the case. And everyone in any circumstance is always more concerned about themselves than anyone else. I think that's just like a fact. I feel like that's a scientific fact. Everyone is just in their own world. Like even at the airport, when it's like uncomfortable, you're like, oh my God, is everyone staring at me? Everyone's just trying to find their own gate and figure out if they're late for their flight. Like it's not, do you know what I mean? Like it's not about you. It's not that deep, but we always perceive it to be far more about us than it actually is. So walking in there, I was like, absolutely not. I felt so uncomfortable if I didn't have something in my hand. So I kept refilling my sodas. I'm like, soda water, something. And there were moments where it was cringe, and there were moments where I was uncomfortable. But once that barrier came down and I started dancing with my friends, and I really just leaned into the fact that clubbing does not have to be revolving around drinking or drugs. Like it doesn't have to be. And I feel like that is such a crazy thing to say, but like, it's so true. We've just been conditioned to believe that you have to be fucked up to go to a club. Usually people that are sober don't go to clubs because they're like, I don't drink, so why would I go? But if you like music and you like the camaraderie of being around a bunch of people who have high energy, good vibes, and like are dancing, clubs are fun as fuck. And it took that trip that really pushed me out of my comfort zone to be comfortable with dancing sober. I think that's such an interesting thing. And a while ago, I shared this video on Instagram of this woman dancing in the middle of the street. Not in like an unsafe way. She was kind of off to the side, but she was just dancing and having a good time because there was a DJ and it was a farmer's market and the sun was out and the vibes were vibing. And it was interesting to watch people watch her because some people were like, hey, get it. And some people were just like, oh my God, like what a weirdo. But she was in a club and people just assumed she was drunk. She would not be judged. They'd be like, oh, fuck, she drank too much. That's so funny. She's drinking poison. That's funny. That's acceptable. Versus, oh, she's just living life and dancing as we should as human beings. That realization, it made me really uncomfortable, as I'm sure it's making a lot of you uncomfortable as you're listening to it. We have normalized people drinking poison and being their authentic human self, to be their authentic human self over just humans being their authentic self. And the hardest part about getting sober was the unconditioning your brain to believe that you can't do all these bold, crazy, amazing things without it. That was the hardest part, because when you're hooked to it for that long, you think, yeah, I can't date without it. I can't sleep with someone without it. I can't do this public speech without it. I need a shot to do this. I need a shot to do this. Like it's crazy, but it's just conditioning. And I'm here to tell you that you can uncondition your brain as well. So once I got sober and I unconditioned my brain, is it unconditioned or reconditioned? I don't know. Unconditioned my brain, I'm going to go with. I feel invincible in the fact that I can do it again for any other thing that we've been conditioned to believe. It's the most beautiful feeling, and you have so much trust in yourself because you're like, if I can do this, I can do anything, bitch. I can do fucking anything. I overcame addiction. Are you kidding me? And what was cool is it wasn't the only thing I was addicted to, drugs and alcohol. There was many other things. And I started eliminating them one by one. There was vaping, there was porn, there was sugar, binge eating. And it became simple. Because once you understand that you will have cravings and the moments will come where you want it, but if you wait just a moment, it will pass. But I think we've been, again, conditioned to suppress our emotions and to not be bored and to not be feeling negative emotions. Negative emotions are wonderful things to feel because they're showing us where the areas are in our lives and in our minds and in our bodies that we need to work on and we need to heal. To be triggered is to be blessed with a signal that is showing you what you need to work on. Don't suppress it. Negative emotions are far more insightful and far more educational than positive emotions will ever be. So we shan't run from them. Trust me, I spent a decade trying to run from negative emotions and negative feelings and any type of sadness. But it wasn't until I got sober and I sat with those emotions that I learned who I was, that I learned what I needed, that I learned when I needed space from people, when my body was saying, fuck no, their energy's off, something's wrong, run. You're tired, you're hungry, you need to rest, you need a bath, you need nutrition, you need sunlight, you need, you know what I mean? Exercise. Like I was not able to identify my basic human needs until I got sober. And as I was saying today, when talking about solo travel and the benefits of it, I feel like it's a sped up process where you like date yourself and have these beautiful intimate moments with yourself and you curate all these core memories with yourself and you sit alone and you sit in the discomfort and you have to discover things about yourself and you have to say, do I want to hang out with this person? I can leave whenever I want. You have this freedom and ability to do and curate an entire experience for solely you. It is so powerful. It has taught me so much more about myself in 2 months than I've learned about in years. Because it's just this fast-tracked experience where you're meeting new cultures, new people. You're constantly pushed into an environment where you have to go with the flow. You have to. You have to lean into the experience and you have to lean into the fact that nothing is permanent. I think for me, growing up in an environment that was so rigid and timed out and mapped out, and there was like no room to be free little humans just having fun. Everything was, you have to do this and then da, 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 da. And I grew up to just absolutely detest any kind of structure in that sense. I like routine, don't get me wrong, but like structure of vacation, structure of life. You can't plan life. You can have an idea, but you can't plan life. And I feel like the more you try to plan life, the more disappointing your life will be, because you just can't. And I feel that's the same way with trips. I don't plan my trips. I just show up. I didn't even know I was coming to Bali on this trip. I thought I was going to go to the Philippines, Malaysia, and then somewhere in Indonesia. I just didn't know. And I ended up doing the Philippines for a week. And then I said, I don't really want to be here anymore. I'm going to go to Bali. And I've not left. I've just not left. I feel it feels aligned for me to stay here. I feel myself. I feel like I'm loving the culture and I'm experiencing it so deeply, and I don't want to go anywhere. And part of that freedom comes from the fact of not having a plan and not having booked flights back to back. And to each their own. I mean, if you want to plan your trips, that's fine too. I think, I am blessed with the freedom to be able to stay longer than a lot of people can if they work for somebody else. So I understand with that, with having a time period, you want to fit as many things as you can into it. And that makes sense for some people. For me, I am blessed in that area, and I really like being able to just take it day by day and not having a plan. I don't have a plan today, but it always ends up being a really cool day. You just step outside, you meet people, you go to the beach, you have fruit, you just enjoy, you swim in the waves. Like, it's just such an unreal experience. It makes me sad that we don't just live like this. It makes me sad that we've been, there's all these social constructs and we have to work and we have to do all these things. Like, it's not what it's meant to be, and it's sad to me that so much of your life cannot be lived because we're working. That's a whole other thing. I don't want to rain on anyone's day with that information and get too deep into that, because I want to focus more on sobriety. But yeah, it's something. This trip has been absolutely incredible. And I do plan on dropping an episode about my entire trip, recommendations, places to stay, what to eat, what to avoid. You know what I mean? I'll do it. I did it after my last trip to Asia, and I'll plug you guys with everything, the apps you need. You got it. So subscribe and stay tuned for that episode to drop as well. But back to the sobriety piece. So this trip, it was an absolute breeze, of course. I'm so used to sobriety at this point, like I don't consider it. The only time that I had a single craving for alcohol on this trip was when I lost my toenail and I had to have it surgically removed, because I was in such an immense amount of pain. I didn't even know how to act. I was like, I just want vodka. I want someone to pour vodka down my throat. It was the only time in so long that I felt that way, and I wouldn't do it. Obviously, I coped, and they gave me pain meds, but it was top 3 most painful experiences of my life. And I don't even like thinking about it. It was so bad, but it's okay. We're okay now. Toenails, I don't see new one growing yet, but I'm not panicking. Try not to. It's going to come back. Manifest. But yeah, that was a journey. But aside from that, no, I don't fucking crave it. I don't crave it at all. I actually thrive without it. I kind of look at it and I see other people drinking and feeling hungover and watching the stages of them kind of losing themselves in the sauce, in the booze. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm so happy that's not me anymore. And there's no judgment, to each their own. Big on body autonomy. You do you, babe. You do you. And I'm going to do me. But that's not going to involve poison anymore. And another thing for me too is I've been researching the effects of alcohol. And there's a Huberman podcast on the effects of alcohol. And if you're interested in getting sober, or you just want to educate yourself on what alcohol actually does to you, small amounts, big amounts, you name it, check it out. I'm pretty sure the title of the episode is just like How Alcohol Affects Your Brain or Body or something like that by Huberman. And it's absolutely mind-blowing and very disturbing that it's legal. And the other thing too is I've started researching where it originated, the term of alcohol, what it means, spirits, all that stuff. If you're interested in learning about it, I would highly recommend, because it'll put you off alcohol for sure. It will help, at least, especially if you're trying to get sober. research it, what it's doing to your mind, body, soul, research the dark history behind alcohol and the intent of why it is legal and why it is pushed. And it is really, really scary. But yeah, this Asia trip has been so enlightening and so amazing. And I have never clubbed in my life more. Even when I was an alcoholic, I never clubbed this much. But to be fair, I was never traveling like this and experiencing these really cool clubs and like concerts and events. There's just always something happening in Bali, right? Especially in Canggu, where I was at for a month. So I am just living life and having so much fun and having dance battles with people and just having an amazing time, absolutely sober. And I was at a club last week. It was Afro night, which was my favorite night. And I was just having the time of my life dancing with no one, just like dancing by myself. And this middle-aged guy was like, here's a scotch, just handed me a scotch. I was like, oh no, thank you. I don't drink. He goes, you don't drink? You're not drunk? And I was like, no. He's like, how are you vibing? And I was like, oh, baby, I am the vibe. I don't need poison to vibe. He's like, oh, that's fucking commendable. And the responses of people, I've kind of been documenting them because I find it really interesting because they'll vary from like, what? That's fucking weird to good for you. I've had people be like, are you having fun? I'm like, I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast. One person, I think, just called me like water because I was just like, I always have a big ass bottle of water with me. It's like shaped like a champagne bottle, but it's literally a bottle of water. And I always laugh because I'm like, how times have changed. Because that used to be me in the club with a bottle of champagne, just like absolutely reckless. And I'm just so much different now. And I'm just the most hydrated person in there. For the most part, people are really shocked always. They're always shocked. Most times I do feel like people are respectful, especially in Canada. Like I know when you're traveling, you have a mix of different cultures, different religions, different humans. So I think the responses are going to vary. In Canada, I feel like it is, for the most part, people are pretty aware of how not cool it is to like judge someone for that. Cause like, what the fuck? But I will say I've had some pretty interesting responses in Asia. Like I said, they vary from like, oh, are you even having fun to like, oh, that's strange. Or like, did you have a problem with it? You know what I mean? People ask anything. And I'm an open book. Not every recovering alcoholic wants to talk about it. So if you're listening to this and you've not struggled with it and you find out someone's sober, amazing. Just, oh, okay, good for you. That's awesome. Like it doesn't need to be an invitation to ask why. I think some people are not as open as me. I don't care. You can ask me anything, literally anything, and I will answer it to you. I don't give a fuck. But not everyone is ready to answer that. And maybe they don't even really know why they're sober or what stage they're at or what that's going to look like or how long they're going to be sober. So maybe just not asking those questions is best, and just being supportive. Okay, cool. Obviously, this goes without a shadow of a doubt to not force somebody to drink. And I had this happen once while I was here and I was shook. I had to walk away. I was like, I'm going to fight this guy. This guy's a fucking idiot. He was so disrespectful. Oh my God. So I'm at the bar with my friend. And actually, since being here, I've inspired 2 women to go sober, which is such an amazing honor. Like that's something I don't take lightly. And I just feel so proud about. Like, are you kidding me? You're sober because I inspired you? Like, that's so cool. And one of those girls, the first conversation we had was about sobriety. We got into it for like a couple hours and she kept saying, what about this? But what about this? I want to do it, but this. Because there's a lot of buts that come with it. Well, what about my birthday? What about holidays? What will my family say? Because where she's from, the culture is also to drink. I think the whole world is structured like that, in case anyone's wondering. Because every country I've spoken with, it is like at the front of their society. Like it is just so pushed. There's only like, I think a couple places in the world where alcohol is like not allowed because of religious reasons. The rest, you can get it anywhere. So her concern was, how are people going to react? What if they try and push it on me? And this was my first time going out with her since she'd made the decision to be sober. And this was somebody she knew. I don't know how close they are, but it was someone that she knew. And he was there with his girlfriend and was like, I'm ordering a drink. Do you want a shot? And she's like, no, I'm not drinking. And he said, fuck off. And he proceeded to order shots for all 4 of us. And he handed them to me and her. And I said, oh, I don't drink. I'm sober. He's like, you're fucking joking me. I said, no. I'm a jokester, but that's no, not a good joke. That would be a really shit joke to just joke about sobriety. It's a bit weird, no? Like, I was like, what the fuck is this guy's deal? And then he was like, fucking no one's drinking in Bali. Is that it now? Threw a fit. Like, fam, you can still drink your shot. No one's taking your shot away. We just don't want to drink. Bullied the shit out of my friend. That was also kind of his friend. There's no way. I used to party with you last year all the time. You were always the person shutting down the blah, 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 blah. She's like, yeah, but it's different. And I said, respect sobriety. Respect sobriety. We've said no multiple times. Keep your shots. I had to walk away because I was like, I'm going to scrap this guy. It was the most disrespectful response. Like to berate someone, to chirp them, to make them feel less than for not drinking poison. Oh, babe, it's a good time to attend therapy now. It's a good time. So I walked away. I said, gotta go. Because I'm going to get into a conversation with someone who obviously does not have the emotional intelligence that could keep up. And it's just, there's sometimes when it's worth it. The older I get, the wiser I get, the more sober, the longer I am sober for. I feel like you just learn when it's time and when it's not. And if my friend wasn't friends with him, I think I would have taken that opportunity to educate him and pop off. But given they had a friendship, I didn't want to say something different because I would have been really, really forward and really direct and blunt. I'm very blunt. You guys know. But I was like absolutely shook that people are still responding that way. If you respond that way to people, I'm going to need you to sit down and never do that again. Like, that is so disrespectful. And I'm not saying that I've not done that. Not to that extent to bully people into like making fun of their sobriety, but I've definitely tried to push alcohol on people who are like, oh, I'm not drinking tonight. I'm not doing this, to make myself feel better. It's a projection. If you were pushing people to drink or do drugs with you, you're feeling alone in it and you want validation that what you're doing is right. Because you know somewhere deep down in your soul it's not. And so coming from that, and now in this place, I'm asking you guys to never fucking try and push and bully people. You don't know where they're at in their journey. What if they just got sober and it was the hardest thing they did, and your peer pressure puts them back into that and they ruin their life spirals. They end up crashing. You don't know the power of your words to people, especially recovering addicts. You don't know where they're at in their stage. It is so important to just respect everyone's like decision in life to like not drink, to drink. Do you know what I mean? Like, just let people be, let people live. They've come to this decision for whatever reasons that you don't need to understand. They don't need to make sense to you because it's not your fucking life. Anyway, that really heated me, but it was the only time that I got a backlash like that. So I think, like I said, you never know when you're traveling because there are so many different cultures. There's so many different reactions. I've had a lot of people give me a high five. I've had a lot of people say, congratulations. That's a fucking accomplishment. A lot of people have responded in very positive ways, and only a few have said things that are inappropriate. But it's far more support and far more kindness and far more hell yeah than there has ever been pushback and bullying, anything like that. And I know too, I'm so healed at this point that I know that people are just projecting, and having been in that position myself for so many years, trying to convince people to do drugs and drinking, it's from a place of pain and loneliness and despair. Like, it's not even valid. Like, their insults aren't valid. They're actually speaking to themselves. So just try not to take too much offense to it, but also take note of that and remove yourself or check them, whatever you're in the mood for. But like, remove yourself from those people. That would not be a friend of mine for sure. But overall, it's been amazing. And it's such a flex. It's such a flex to not need to drink, to go out and have a wonderful time, to interact with people. Also, my social skills, just from interacting with people, being put in new situations, meeting new cultures, like you have such better social skills, and you're able to just vet like, okay, who's my vibe, who's not. And one thing I've noticed too is I get really tired around people that I'm not having stimulating conversation with. So if I'm like Obviously, sometimes I'm just tired because like the sun and it's been a long day, but I pay attention to how my body responds when I'm interacting with someone. And if I'm like full of life and have a lot of energy, you kind of feel high. You kind of feel buzzed. Like you're just like, ooh, like I'm having so much fun and I'm dancing and the vibes are vibing. It's like you don't need alcohol. You don't need alcohol. You really don't. You get to this point where you become so addicted to the clarity and you become a magnet of what is meant for you and the energy you want to attract, because you are being the energy you want to attract, that you realize, I don't need it. It's even better because you don't feel like shit and you're hydrated and you're healthy and you're just burning calories dancing instead of consuming them. It's just, it's such a lovely experience. And I'm sending so much love and healing and support and comfort and everything to anyone on their journey right now, whether you've been sober a minute, a day, a week, a year. I fucking see you and I'm so, so, so proud of you. And it is the best decision you may ever make in your entire life. So please, please, please never let anyone bully you out of it. I need you to sit with how scary that is. That most people normalize drinking poison over not. That's how they live their life. That's how they choose to celebrate. That's how they choose to spend their time. That's more normalized. That's intense. So I think it's a hard decision to make, and it's a hard decision to stick to in a society that judges it. They judge it, right? But it's such a flex. And when you can get to that level of like self-love and self-respect and self-confidence, you don't give a fuck what people think about you. And you're so aware of how fucked up it is that they do care. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, that's so disturbing that you want me to drink poison. Like it's just, you just become, so self-aware, so educated on it. And it doesn't trigger you. It's just such an amazing experience. And I just want it for everyone. I want it for everyone who wants it for themselves. But the other thing I will say is I definitely wouldn't encourage people to go to bars, go to clubs, go to parties where there's alcohol flowing if you're newly sober. I wouldn't recommend. It just makes it harder. But I guess it depends your determination, because I was surrounded by it pretty early on, but I was so determined to not. But everyone's recovery looks different. And people have asked me before if I did AA. I didn't. I had a wonderful support system. I was in 2 different types of therapy at the time. And I was in COVID too. So I was just like really forced to deal with my shit. And so I didn't. But if you feel you need it, do it. There's no shame in it. And I think there's literally nothing that could go wrong by having a support system like AA to help you stay sober. I think that's just such an amazing thing. I think it's commendable to get help and be vulnerable. So get help, seek help in whatever way you need. But I would be very leery around alcohol and scenes with alcohol for a while, depending on how strong you feel in your sobriety. And I would also recommend you write a list of why you gave up drinking and keep it in your phone, keep it on your notes so you can pull it up anytime you're craving it. I want you to think of everything, the regrets, the feelings, the fears, the anxiety. I want you to think of everything that you hate about drinking. And I want you to put it in a list in your phone. And then anytime you feel like you crave it or you want it, trust me, by the time you're halfway down that list, you're not going to want the drink anymore. And it's okay to have cravings, and it's okay to miss moments, and it's okay to feel that way. It's normal to feel that way. It's not normal to not feel that way. Like, you're going to miss it. You're going to crave it. Your body's going to crave it. You've been conditioned to believe that you need it to live. Of course you're going to miss it. Of course you're going to crave it, guys. But show yourselves grace and sit with it. Allow the feeling to pass. Allow the craving to come and sit with it. It fucking sucks. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It fucking sucks. But guess what? It gets significantly easier. For a split second, I wanted vodka poured down my throat when my toenail was being ripped off my fucking body. And then it passed. It passed while I was in immense amount of pain. It's just a moment. And sometimes the moments are longer than others. But I'll sit with it. Because I'm telling you, when you overcome this, you can overcome everything. Toxic relationship patterns, the way your brain is wired to believe certain things. I feel like I've been able to uncondition my brain from religion, uncondition a lot of my brain from trauma. I've conditioned myself to give up multiple things that I was heavily addicted to. It's endless amounts of things, endless amounts of power. It's not just alcoholism that you're giving up. You're conditioning your brain to be stronger and more resilient to things that are not good for you. By saying no and overcoming that craving, you are building so much internal strength. You don't understand it in the moment, but coming from somebody who has done it, I'm telling you, even though you feel like you barely got through that moment, you did. You calloused yourself a little bit thicker, and it's going to be easier the next time. So just sit with it. Sit with the moment, and just remember me saying this is normal to feel this way. Reach out to me if you feel that way. My DMs are always open. Please reach out to me if you feel that way. Have a support system in place. Have a sponsor. Go to AA. Go to a meeting. It's normal to feel the cravings. We're fucking human. You were addicted to something. Of course you're going to feel it. And I think sometimes we can feel like a failure if we crave it, because we're like, oh, we've come so far. Why would we crave it? You know, I'm over 2 years sober. Why would I want it? But it's the cravings, they lessen. They're rare. They become more and more rare, and they're just tiny and they're barely there. I think it was like maybe a year since I've craved it before then, maybe longer actually. Probably not until, my last Asia trip, I think I would have craved it. So it's be gentle with yourselves. Be careful the environments you surround yourself in. But once you start educating yourself and you start getting healthier physically, mentally, there's so many benefits to being sober. You fall in love with you for who you actually are. And then you just become a magnet for all the things you actually want and you weren't able to achieve because you were stuck in a low vibrational place because of the poison. So I loved recording this episode. This was really beautiful. And it was just something I had weighing on my heart. And I hope it's just like the best reminder for people who are sober curious, wanting to get sober. I'm making sobriety look cool. It is cool. And I honestly think within the next 5-10 years, I think a lot of people are going to go sober because I feel like health and fitness is skyrocketing. I feel like education, we have so much access to education and science and facts about alcohol and the effects, on our bodies. I think that's increasing. And I do believe that the stigma is reducing significantly. I mean, I've met fucking hundreds of people here, and I only had one really bad interaction with someone when I said I was sober. It's getting better. Promise. It's getting easier, which is such an exciting thing because getting sober in an environment, in a society that is getting better with accepting it is amazing. My experience is going to be different from other people's, other cultures, other countries. I can't speak for everyone's experience, but to be strong enough to do that and to fight peer pressure. Guys, if you can do that, you can do anything. Just remember that. If you can do that, you can do anything. I love it. I hope this inspired you guys. It definitely hyped me up. I absolutely love sobriety. I love who I am sober. It's unbelievable. And if you guys need any support, if you have any questions ever, oh my God, please never hesitate to reach out through email, through my website, on fullmindedpodcast.com, through Instagram, whichever. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope wherever you're at listening to this right now, you have the best day, night, and write out that list. Write out that list of why you want to stop drinking. And please, if you're someone who's just gotten sober, or you're inspired to go sober, this helps you go sober, please tell me. I love that stuff. It hypes me. It hypes me to know that I'm inspiring people to go sober. That's such a fucking cool thing to do. So, so cool. And it's such an honor. I don't take it lightly, but okay, guys, sending you so much love. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I loved having you. If you wish to support this podcast, please follow us so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media at Full Minded Podcast. Please visit our website at www.fullmindedpodcast.com to submit all your questions. If you wish to be a guest on this podcast, please fill out the form on our website to apply. Your continued support means the world, so thank you again for taking the time out of your day to tune into Full Minded with Alyssa Bette. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and remember that there is power in owning our imperfect and messy lives. It's all a part of the human experience, and you're not alone in it.